Hello and welcome to the first episode of Brewery Towns, the podcast that talks about brewing beer throughout the country. In this episode, we head to cozy Paducah, Kentucky. We talk about temperance rallies, whiskey parades, and the beers that both locals and visitors can drink today. Now, this is our first episode, so please forgive us if the sound quality is not great, but we think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And remember to like us on Instagram and Facebook to keep up with the latest episodes. And now, the first episode of Brewery Towns. All right, we did it.
Here we are.
Starting a podcast. First one. We know what we're doing, so this will go smoothly. But anyway, welcome to Brewery Towns, the podcast that talks about brewing beer throughout the country. So the city that we're going to do today, there's a story behind it. But it's called Paducah, Kentucky. Paducah, Kentucky.
Paducah.
Yeah, Kentucky. Yeah. Have you heard of it before?
I've not. No.
Well, I'll give you a little geography lesson here. It's on the border with eastern Missouri and Kentucky.
Okay.
It's on the border with southern Illinois and Kentucky.
Okay.
And northern Tennessee is not too far away either. So it's like that little sliver in like western Kentucky that kind of is like a triangle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's right in the point.
Right.
Tip of the arrow.
Not necessarily in the tip, a little bit north of that, but
Okay.
it's really the only thing out there.
Might as well be the tip of the arrow.
That's correct. Correct. And it is the county seat of McCracken County, and they formed a city here because it's on the shores of the Ohio River, and the Ohio River, I assume, starts in Ohio, flows south, and then it meets up with the...
There'd be no way to know.
Yeah, it meets up with the Mississippi River.
Okay.
And so this area is actually known as the Ohio Valley. So
Okay.
like the Ohio Valley Conference in basketball, well, in all sports. It's kind of like the
Especially
schools around this area. Yeah, so it's halfway between St. Louis and Nashville. So like St. Louis is only about 2 hours away. Nashville's only about 2 hours away.
Okay.
So like when you're in Paducah, there's nothing really around you, but you know these big cities are 2 hours away. Yeah. So I was in Paducah for New Year's Eve 2019. Me and Tex were driving back from Pennsylvania, and we needed to stop somewhere. And I wanted to see a city that had a brewery that was open.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the breweries, they like closed at 8 on New Year's Eve.
Private parties.
Yeah, private parties, or
Go
they didn't
home
get...
and have your friends.
Yeah, they didn't get business. So we found Paducah and stayed at the La Quinta, got a Subway sandwich, and went out, got a couple drinks, home by 9:30, asleep by 10.
Good New Year's.
So it was a real treat. But I was at an outreach event with my job on Saturday, and this one guy came up and he said he's from northern Kentucky, and he was like Paducah. And then the volunteer that was with me, he was in the Coast Guard, and he was stationed in Paducah for a few years. And he said in the Coast Guard, it's one of the best kept secrets, because Paducah's like the small, like cozy town.
Did you tell him, hey, I got a Subway?
I didn't mention the Subway. It was really crowded, so I think people liked the Subway there.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I got there. It was close to dark, so I didn't really get to see. But from what I did see, it seemed like a pretty cute little place.
Little place. Like how many people are we talking?
So the city itself only has about 25,000.
That's not too tiny. Okay.
No, it's not too It's not crazy tiny, and it's been about 25,000 for the past 100 years.
Okay.
Like it hasn't really fluctuated too much, and just in the metro, it's only 100,000. So. You know, you have small towns outside.
Yeah.
They think Paducah's the big town, and you have these small towns outside.
Right.
But its nickname is called the Quilt City.
Quilt City?
Because it's home to the National Quilt Museum.
Oh, that's exciting.
And the American Quilters Society has their headquarters there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's like a big attraction. 2 times every year they have like a big quilting event. And I think that brings in a lot of people. And hometown, we hope to do one of these every episode. For the smaller towns, it's a little bit of a stretch to find someone famous, but the hometown of Paducah, Kentucky is Jerry Ryan. Does that ring a bell at all?
It doesn't.
So she played 7 of 9 in Star Trek Voyager.
Never saw Star
Trek.
Never seen any Star Trek.
Well, Star Trek Voyager was the only one I watched, and 7 of 9, she was like half human, half robot, I guess,
Okay.
and she was 7 of 9 that were made. And she was like the sex symbol on the show. So she came in like season 5, kind of when people were getting bored with it.
Oh, okay.
So they brought her and got some sex appeal.
Hot robot.
Yeah, they did another few seasons. It's actually pretty good.
Sure.
Every episode they are trying to get home, so like it becomes really repetitive.
Yeah.
But other than that, you need like the sci-fi aspect.
Was she in anything else, or was that her like big hit?
I'm sure she was in other things, but I think that's what most people would.
I see.
So Cherry Ryan, born and raised in Paducah, Kentucky. Okay, it was founded in 1838. It is named after the Comanche people. They were known as the Paducahs, so they called it Paducah, Kentucky. It was settled by these guys called the Poor Brothers, P-O-R-E, and the town itself was laid out by William Clark in 1827.
Like
the William Clark.
William Clark.
Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. Slow going at first, but in the 1830s, dry docks started to go on the river, so barges could come from the Mississippi. And it started to become a hub between Chicago and St. Louis in the north and New Orleans in the south. So, I mean, I think it's just because nothing else is around there.
Yeah, it was a place to stop, stay a night.
Yeah.
Have a beer.
Have a beer early on, it might be tough.
Oh.
So this one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to talk about spirits as well as beer.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have that strong of a beer history, but the distillery scene is pretty cool.
I see.
So the first one was Jersey City Distillery, and that was founded in 1859. It was a distillery, but they imported barrels from out of town, and then they bottled them. So they didn't really make anything there. They were just kind of like, they got it from the
like a distributor.
Yeah, distributor, yeah. But yeah, it was named after a small section of the town, Jersey City. And they didn't produce whiskey, but the whiskey was what it was shipped in, and they put it in the bottles. So that was in 1859, so that was pretty early.
Where did they get it from? Is it just sort of all over? Anybody, they're just buying up whiskey?
I'm sure they had, I mean, you're in Kentucky, so I'm not sure when the big players started in Kentucky, but maybe they were bringing in that. Maybe it's just, I have no idea.
Okay,
It just said out of town. And it says out of town. I got a lot of this information from the McCracken County Public Library. I wanted to make sure that
while you were there,
they got a shout out. No, they post them online.
Oh, cool.
Post them online for free, which is nice.
That's
and
awesome.
they did an article about distilleries and about breweries in the city. So, thank you to the library.
You said they're the county seat, so the library is probably in Paducah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's cool.
So definitely go check them out if you're ever around there.
Don't go New Year's Eve. Some
That's
runs long.
That's they were almost out of tuna, so just made it. Just made it in time. Okay, so the first brewery, it wasn't around until 1901, when the Horber brothers, I want to say, it sounds German, they started the Paducah Brewing Company.
Okay.
There were other unsuccessful attempts before this to get a brewery going. Even though Paducah was a really good location, for some reason it just didn't work out. So the Paducah Brewing Company was the first one that was founded and actually made beer and was successful. And so these brothers came from out of town, and they had an interesting relationship with the city. The Paducah Sun reported at the time that the brothers were new to town, but became very popular young men and have made a host of friends during their brief residence here.
Because they got everybody drunk.
Yep.
Excellent.
I think so.
I would make friends that way too.
I think so. So I don't know what it means by their brief residence here, if they came, started it, and then left, or if they came...
Just that they'd only been there for
started it like immediately.
I see. So like maybe they were like, we're going to move there and start the brewery.
Yeah.
Like that was the only reason to go there.
Yeah.
I see.
Which would be interesting, because why would they pick Paducah? Maybe they...
I mean, they had some insight if it worked.
Yeah.
I guess.
So on April 18th, 1901, the Paducah Brewing Company opened, and the Paducah Sun advertised, "Come and bring your family, it will be pleasant."
That does sound pleasant.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one was, "The ladies are also invited to be present especially."
Wow, so progressive.
Yeah.
Love it.
And then the last one is, "Our plant is a model of neatness, assistance, polite." So, I mean, why would you not go to see this?
It sounds perfectly lovely.
Yeah, so the result, hundreds attended and were given tours through one of the largest and most perfect brewery plants to be found anywhere. And that's according, again, to the Paducah Sun.
I mean, they might have been a little biased.
I agree.
But we'll give them, like, a lot of credit.
I agree. Sure. I mean, it's like when the first brewery comes in any city, people are just going to go for it, even if it's not very good. But when they went there, the Paducah Brewing Company made lager and Pilsner beer. They also made, I don't know the history behind this, they made a Christmas Pilsner.
Oh.
I feel like it's early for like in 1901 just to make a holiday seasonal beer.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
I would think that more seasonal beers would be much more common because surely they're using local resources more. So like whatever's in season.
That's true.
I could see that.
That's
being
true.
a lot more common
A
actually.
Christmas Pilsner. I'd be interested.
That sounds pretty good.
And they also made a Bock, and then they had a label called Paducah, Paduka. That's not how the city's spelled.
Not okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Paducah Beer was advertised as nutritious as it is delicious, and easily the pure food drink.
Pure food drink.
Yeah.
Because it'll fill you up.
I guess so. A lot of these old beers, they talk about, they include this as like a food as well as a drink. So I don't know if that's like, if it was like thicker, maybe they were like, it was like a stouty kind of like,
Sure.
or if it was just their food, I don't.
It was just like, oh, I had a beer. I'm good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can, I appreciate that.
And they distributed throughout saloons in the city, so they were pretty well off. And then, so the next one, the next distillery came around in 1903. It was called Old Tyrrell Distillery, and it was made from the Tyrrell brothers. And they were the first to truly make whiskey in the city.
Okay. Not just the shipping.
Yes.
Shipping it out from before.
So the first local whiskey that Paducah had. And it opened April 11th, 1903, so almost 2 years exactly after the brewery. And the Paducah Evening Sun ran a front page ad that outlined the entire distilling process. And it said, quote, "Few people of this section of the state where there are no distilleries have ever seen one, and for that reason the following description ought to be of general interest."
They were telling people how to distill at home.
Possibly.
Right?
I mean, I think that's good advertisement.
Also, do you have like a nice printout of that you could give to me just for educational purpose?
Yeah, I would look on, the McCracken County Public Library's website. They had some images too at the bottom of and then it wasn't a long article. So.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, I'm not gonna distill at home. It's just for educational purpose.
Yeah, it's part of the show.
Right.
Yeah. So they made whiskey, and then they made bourbon as well. You're in Kentucky, you may as well.
Well, so bourbon's a kind of whiskey. So they made two different kinds of whiskey.
Correct.
One that was just whiskey.
Yes.
Air quotes.
Yes.
Whiskey,
yes.
and then a bourbon. Okay.
Yeah. From what it said.
Sure.
So around this time, temperance rallies were becoming prevalent in Paducah. They started as early as 1901, and they just kind of gathered in front of saloons and had a rally. And they didn't really do much. They just kind of shouted things, and it was just really angry people from the Paducah chapter of Kentucky's Anti-Saloon League. And
so they didn't like the saloon. Now, did they just like drink at home, or they were like, don't drink at all?
I think they...
Probably.
It was an anti-saloon league, so I don't know if they didn't want people to get drunk in public,
sure.
or they didn't like what
maybe they were behind the scenes of the newspaper pushing the distill at home.
Oh, that could
subtle
be.
line because they don't drink in public.
That quote was from the Paducah Evening Sun, not the Paducah Sun, so that could be an alternative.
I think we're on to something.
So they had these temperance rallies, but then the distilleries, they had these things called whiskey parades. And they were exactly what it sounds like, to oppose the temperance rallies. So the brothers from Old Tyrrell Distillery, they hired boys to carry banners and bands to play music and walk down the street.
Just have a good time.
Mm-hmm. One temperance rally in 1907 destroyed all the banners from the whiskey parades and smashed several bottles. And, this was like the first time that they had like physical altercations. It was just kind of like words.
Just rude. It's just rude.
So the next day, one Tyrrell brother led another whiskey parade and served as the drum major, but conducted with a pickaxe instead of a baton. The conductors. He had a pickaxe in his hand.
Was that like a little show of aggression there?
I would imagine.
It seems like it.
Yeah. When I was writing this down, it seemed very like Gangs of New York.
Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I would.
Dead rabbits.
Yeah. Well, they're probably like, don't like destroy our banners and don't smash our bottles. We're not doing that to you.
Right.
Don't do it to
We're
us.
just trying to get drunk.
Yeah. This shows that you people are the problem. We're not the problem.
You're the problem, man.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Prohibition came to Kentucky. I think in 1917, 1918 during that time. It was nationally in 1920, but then each state
was doing their own thing.
Yeah, could go way before that. So Old Tyrrell closed in 1918, and Paducah Brewing closed in 1919. And according to the Paducah Sun in 1920, quote, "This morning dawned on a liquorless United States with a Paducah eminently suited to the hibernation of camels." I don't know if camels hibernate. So I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, me neither.
Eminently suited to the hibernation of camels. It was a different time.
Camels and water. Like, let's drink water?
Eminently suited to the hibernation.
I have no idea what that means.
Like, what does it mean when camels sleep? Like, to the
tired.
Hibernation of camels. But, okay, yeah.
Right. So it was all dry. Everywhere.
All dry, yeah.
I mean, except for those home distillers.
Yeah, and everyone.
They were informed earlier by them. Yeah.
They were all doing it. So, when Paducah Brewing closed in 1919, that was the last brewery or distillery to be in the city until 1996.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was like 75 plus years. Yeah.
Down. Wow.
And the one that opened in 1996 was called Jeremiah's Froghead Brewery. And this is literally all the information I could find on it, that it opened in 1996.
So it's not still open.
It's not still open. I have no idea when it closed. They just made a mention to it that this was the first one. And a lot of the breweries that opened in the 1990s, this was pretty early for the craft beer movement. A lot of them are described as ahead of their time. And so people weren't really into it, so they closed. But if they were open today, they would be popular. So I think this was one of them.
But they were still, like, all the national brands had still kept everyone in check.
Exactly. So if you know anything about Jeremiah's Froghead Brewery, please contact us. Yeah. I wanted to see their logo, too.
If you are Jeremiah, please.
Why'd you name it that? That's what I'm wondering.
I like it.
So it closed sometime after 1996. And the next one to open was the Silent Brigade Distillery in 2014. It was opened by two guys, Keith Bundy and John Brown. And they produced bourbon, and then they did some moonshine as well. But if you go on their website and Facebook page, it's really odd. It's almost like it's more of like a club than like a distillery. Like it seems like they have these really odd live music choices.
Like a club.
Yeah, like for New Year. Like I think they did something for New Year's Eve, but I was like, I don't think I would like that. It just seems like it's like dancing and like music, but like club music.
Well, maybe it's there's not that in town, and they're filling up.
Yeah, but it's just weird. It's a distillery that's doing that. So, but I guess if you have
a space for it or something. But they were still distilling.
Yeah.
Were they putting it out locally or just sort of in house?
I think I think they were distributing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, their website was not great, so I couldn't find much information. And even the local newspaper, it's still called the Paducah Sun, didn't do much on it.
No. They weren't as excited this time.
Yeah, well, usually when there's a new opening of a brewery or something, the local newspaper just runs a little ad just kind of talking about it, but nothing with these guys. So the next year in 2015, the first brewery since the Paducah Brewing closed in 1919.
No, since
Froghead. Yeah,
Froghead,
forgot about Froghead.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the second brewery. Right. It was called Dry Ground Brewing Company. Okay. Owners were Ed and Megan Musselman. I assume it was a couple.
Strong.
Yeah. And the location was in a 1939 Coca-Cola bottling plant.
Okay.
And there's a really cool story behind this. So Paducah's on the Ohio River, and they've had some massive floods come through because it's just literally right on the river. And the worst of those floods came in 1937. So the river crested at 60.8 feet, but the flood stage was only 50 feet. So you're talking about 10 feet above that. And residents were forced away for 3 weeks, and it became the worst natural disaster in the Ohio Valley.
Oh,
so wow. In that region, yeah.
1937,
yeah. So this man named Luther Carson, he owned an original bottling plant and escaped by boat through the second-story window, when the water was coming in. And then told rescuers he would build a new facility on the spot where he reached dry ground.
Wherever you
get off the boat, wherever I put my feet down, this is where I'm going to build the new plant. And he did that, and it was the 1939 Coca-Cola bottling plant, and so that's why it's called Dry Ground.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I went here, and it was really cool, a really nice atmosphere. They have like a nice fire pit outside, and they have like a huge space where they brew, and then a huge space in the back where they just have tables. And I wish I would have known the story before I went, because I want to see if they have, like photos on the wall of this,
Right.
But I didn't.
Do you think that he was just like, he got to a spot and he was like, I'm not getting out yet. This isn't a good place. I'm going to go over here.
Well, who knows how? Who knows?
So he's true to his word, but like a little deceptive. I believe.
It seemed like, from what I remember, it was on a little bit of a hill, because you went down under a bridge.
So maybe it's very realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no reason. I'm just this up. Why did you have to
But they're in a building. There's other people in the building. They just opened a Mellow Mushroom right next to the brewery, which is cool.
That's the pizza joint.
Yes.
Okay.
National
Yes.
Pizza Joint.
Yeah.
So 2 products that I wanted to highlight: the 37 Flood IPA, got a 3.70 on Untapped, and the Uncle Luther Strong Bitter, named after Luther Carson, got a 3.61.
Now, was he really their uncle?
Like,
Or they're just like, he was someone's
yeah, I think that's a Kentucky thing.
Just
call everyone
he's
uncle.
not your dad, it's my uncle. Okay.
Yeah. But that's cool. I mean, they know their history and they
I like
show
that.
it.
I like that a lot. That's right.
And so, just a couple months after Dry Ground opened, Paducah Beer Werks opened, and owner Todd Bloom, he renovated an historic Greyhound bus station that was downtown. And I went to this one too. It's a lot darker. Like it seems like a space where you would go and watch like a comedy show. Like it's very dark, and I think all the windows were covered up. So it was weird just to go for a beer because they just have a small bar. But I was thinking, because they still have lockers in there, I thought it was an old bowling alley. I was like, this is definitely a bowling alley.
Wasn't a bowling alley.
Wasn't, again, didn't know anything about this when I
Right.
went. Old Greyhound station. And they do, people go there for dinner. They do have musical performances. They have comedy nights because they have a big stage, and then they have a lot of like,
so they
Mhm.
yeah, I see.
they like have a lot of those like circle tables that people sit on one side and they like watch the stage.
Right, sure.
So like it looked pretty cool, and they had live music when I was there. So definitely a good place to go chill if you go. They have a good outside area where you can bring your dog too. But the product I wanted to highlight I had when I went there, it's called Behold a Pale Sloth. ABV of 3.75, and it got a 3.64 on Untapped. And I looked up, do you know anything about Behold a Pale Horse?
No.
So it's a reference in the book of Revelation. It's like one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
I see. Okay.
And apparently the pale horse represents plague.
Okay.
You know, they each represent something different.
Sure.
So I don't know what a Behold a Pale Sloth means.
Maybe
I
it's like slow coming.
Oh, I like that. Wouldn't that would be
Sloths are
cute if we
slow,
just
right?
turned the horsemen into sloths.
We could just like walk past them. They wouldn't catch us.
That's
Sloths are slow.
Yeah, that's a good T-shirt idea.
Yeah, right there.
Just writing it down. Okay. I just got it because I had sloth in the name and because it was really low in alcohol. And I was like, I'm going to go to this other place. I may as well not
That's
get a really rough IPA.
wow. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So that was 2015. Dry Ground was 2015. Nothing since. It's only a town of 25,000. So I feel like 2 breweries is enough to support it for now. You don't want to oversaturate it.
They're both still open, right?
Both still
'Cause you
open,
were
yeah.
just there,
And I feel like they get a lot of people in the summertime. You know, they just come travel for the river. It's probably a lot of recreational
Sure,
things that go on there. And, you know, maybe the quilters
oh, right. I forgot
meet there
the
too.
quilt. Twice a year.
Twice a year, so big.
Old ladies can drink.
Yeah,
And I also
oh, yeah.
don't. There's probably lots of young people that quilt.
Yeah,
It's just
especially in
great
that
outlet.
especially in that area, and they have like a lot of baseball fields too. It's a big baseball area, so I think they get a lot of tournaments that come down too.
Nice.
So you know, people are traveling there.
Does either brewery or both can and like put any out, or are they all sort of?
I don't know. I would assume Dry Ground does. From the vibe I got from them,
Okay.
they just produce a lot of beers.
I see.
But I could just be making that up. Yeah, but if you go to Paducah, definitely check out these 2 breweries and that distillery. Tell us definitely what the distillery is like, because I have not been there and I want to know if it's a club or if it's more traditional. And then check out the Quilters, National Quilters Museum.
Yeah, and again, Jeremiah, please let us know.
Or just like post, like get with the local newspaper, the Paducah Sun. They love writing about breweries and beer.
Right.
And just tell your story. Well, I hope you're still listening, Mom and Dad. But we'll try to do one of these again soon, and we'll put it out, and we'll do some big cities, some small cities, and just talk about the brewing history. You know, even small cities like this have really cool stories,
Yeah.
and that's what we're hoping to share. See you next time.